Preparations are already underway here in our area to administer the Pfizer shot to children.
Can we put up the numbers for the governor's race?
All righty, Virginia, we won this thing!
We've never seen anything quite like this. It's going to be a famous picture.
It can't be 20 years.
How we were able to move forward and why we must never forget.
Love doesn't die, it lives on with the memories.
What responsibility did the FDA have to act on this information?
These storms are producing rainfall 1 to 3 inches per hour.
7 News is following the aftermath of this contentious school board meeting. Where do they go from here?
For 75 years, 7 News has been on your side, serving the community through milestones and challenges. Whatever next year brings, 7 News will be on your side.
As soon as the president mentioned that he wanted the crowd to march to the Capitol patriotically and peacefully, many started moving in that direction, even before the president was done talking.
Dave, I've covered a lot of protests up on Capitol Hill. I've never seen anything like this. We were on the west side of the Capitol when all of a sudden we saw several MPD vans pull up with reinforcements.
That has necessitated, we are told now, a lockdown of the Capitol building.
The behavior that we are witnessing is shameful, unpatriotic, and above all, it is unlawful.
What are you reporting on, sir? It's already been gone out. All of the good video is gone by the patriots that went inside. You weren't inside.
All right, there's obviously a lot of anger with the media.
It seems as though the farther they get away from the building, the calmer they get. But no one is apologizing for what happened out here today. Just about everybody we've spoken to said they wanted to accomplish something and they felt like they had. We were hung out to dry. We were failed by our leadership. Those comments coming today from United States Capitol police officers who wanted to be heard but not identified. They are angry and embarrassed that rioters urged on by President Trump were able to invade the Capitol and they were powerless to stop it.
Since the riots, 7 on Your Side has been identifying suspects caught inside the federal building.
We can let you know that the FBI is doing exactly the same thing. In fact, here's investigative reporter Scott Taylor, who's ID'd even more faces.
That's 30-year-old Eric Munchell in the Senate chamber wearing military-style clothing and holding zip ties. He was taken into custody on Sunday in Nashville. Agents recovered several weapons during his arrest. That's far-right activist Tim Giannett live streaming from inside the Capitol building. His nickname, Baked Alaska.
The Capitol police officers who were on the front lines performed bravely in the face of extraordinary violence and destruction.
But then the union earlier this week voted no confidence in the chief and other top brass for the way they handled the days leading up to the attack by Trump supporters. So far, 6 people have died. Officer Brian Sicknick collapsed after the fray. 2 Capitol officers died by suicide, and 3 civilians dead, 1 shot by police. The union chairman said the real issue at hand here is the failure of leadership at the top.
In a rare display, lawmakers hugged witnesses before their testimony, reliving the violent January 6th riots via newly shown video.
Push them back!
I feel like I went to hell and back to protect them and the people in this room. But too many are now telling me that hell doesn't exist, or that hell actually wasn't that bad. The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful.
Showing off the now approved article of impeachment, the president's critics in the House prevailed again.
Donald Trump is a clear and present danger to our country.
So help you God?
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
And with that, the United States got a new president and the first woman to serve as vice president.
I will be a president for all Americans.
With a message of unity for a divided nation on a day that looked very different from inaugurations past.
And as the new president gets to work, D.C. now tries to get back to normal. A look at when all this security will be gone.
And as night falls on the nation's capital, promises of better days ahead.
That breaking news in just the last hour today. Governor Larry Hogan confirming the first cases of the Omicron variant.
And while most of their symptoms are minor, Dr. Aduamankwa says the virus is getting stronger and acting quicker.
she's seeing patients with symptoms 48 hours after known exposure. Months ago, it would take 3 to 5 days for the illness to start.
If we keep up with the current trends, my concern is that we're going to have a supervirus.
They are approaching the highest numbers they have ever seen, and there are stresses on the hospitals. Today, here at Doctors Community Hospital in Lanham, we got an inside look. We heard the situation straight from the doctors and a patient. Edgar is one of more than 60 COVID patients currently at Luminous Health Doctors Community Hospital in Lanham. He's one of more than 200 COVID patients spread across Prince George's County, numbers not seen since last February. Though it's hard to understand him through his mask, Edgar wants to be heard.
When I breathe, it hurts. When I cough, it hurts.
When I breathe, it hurts. When I cough, it hurts, he says, before stopping to catch his breath. The doctors and nurses caring for him say these days they don't have a second to catch their breath.
Currently, we're standing in the ICU. We have 24 beds in our ICU, and we're about at 18.
Dr. Sunil Madden is chief medical officer here. He says even as the surge fills his hospital, a spike in positive tests among his staff is limiting his ability to take care of people like Edgar. Today alone, 52 employees are out because of positive COVID tests.
And it is the type of memorial that leaves you in awe and speechless. At first glance, it's beautiful and elegant, but then you realize what it's for. A very painful and scary reality looms in the shadows of these waving flags. You can visit this immense field of flags here on the National Mall starting tomorrow until October 3rd. But sadly, the exhibit will continue to grow each day. Each white flag represents a life lost to COVID in the United States.
While food insecurity continues,
elote, zanahoria, naranja.
A new vaccine registration initiative is taking hold in places hit hard by COVID-19.
Hola, ¿cómo está?
Neighborhood Health, a large provider of medical services for the underinsured in Northern Virginia, is combining forces with scores of community groups to identify people in need and get them vaccinated.
¿Y está interesada en registrarse para la vacuna? Oh, ok, perfecto.
In this case, while United Community hands out food in Alexandria, Neighborhood Health is there to alleviate vaccine concerns by providing education and even transportation once vaccine dates are scheduled.
In state after state and nationally, we're seeing that communities of color, particularly Black and Hispanic residents, are being vaccinated at lower rates.
Dr. Basim Khan, who runs Neighborhood Health, says they've doled out some 10,000 vaccines. 85% have been to people of color. He says the key is improving access to a process often confounding.
Bueno, lo que yo pienso es que sí, qué tan efectiva será.
Adamara Diga, who lost her job due to the pandemic, was concerned about the vaccine's effectiveness and side effects.
78.
But now is registered, knowing a shot in her arm will get her back to work sooner.
These metals are extremely toxic to infants and children.
It's one of the reasons why we've taken lead out of gas, removed it from paint, cleared it from water pipes, and eliminated it from almost every product you can think of, except from perhaps the most obvious: baby food, where lead and other dangerous heavy metals like mercury and arsenic have tainted top brands for years, in an industry Congress and others have accused of acting with impunity.
Reflects a moral failure, an ethical failure on the part of the industries.
Dr. Philip Landrigan is an epidemiologist, pediatrician, and one of the world's leading advocates for children's health.
It's not acceptable in a society such as ours to allow children to be exposed to these levels of lead in baby food.
Yet Spotlight on America tracked down scientists and food safety advocates who tested these products 5 years ago, warned the companies about the contaminants they discovered, only, they say, to be blown off.
You know, we sort of assumed initially we would reach out to these manufacturers who say, hey, look, you've got a problem, like you should fix that. And they would say, well, thanks, we'll look into it. That wasn't really what happened.
Dr. Sean Callan led the team that conducted the largest ever analysis of baby foods, searching for more than 130 contaminants and toxins. The findings were published by the nonprofit Clean Label Project and later in a peer-reviewed journal. Clean Label Project Director Jackie Bowen.
It really came back to these nonprofit consumer advocacy organizations serving as that canary in the coal mine to bring attention.
And the companies took note. In this 2016 email we obtained from the Clean Label Project between their group and the head of quality for Gerber, it's clear the company wants more information, touting transparent communication with consumers around potential food contamination risks. The promising interaction, says Bowen, quickly fizzled, leaving consumers in the dark. That is, until a congressional subcommittee started asking questions, requesting internal documents and test results from the companies that revealed the same problems that Bowen and Callan had warned them about 5 years earlier. Congressional investigators would later call the company's behavior reckless disregard for the health of babies.
Breaking now at 6. A salute to a fallen colleague after more deadly violence in our area. This time, just outside the Pentagon. Several people injured, 2 dead. 7 News team coverage continues, tracking the investigation. And new at this hour, the questions officials won't answer.
So people started hitting the deck and we were like lying on the ground because we thought there was somebody above us with a gun.
And right now, 7 News on your side, looking into the fallout from last night's chaotic scene at Nationals Park. The sound of gunshots sending fans running onto the field, some ducking into dugouts for cover. Police later saying that the shooting happened outside the third base gate, and a fan who was trying to leave the park and beat the traffic home was hit by that gunfire.
Coming to the newsroom right now, and it comes to us from Metro. There is some kind of derailment going on with the Blue Line just outside of Arlington Cemetery.
And I'm told these folks are still on the train or being evacuated from the train at the moment. That train was headed south from Roslyn. It was a Blue Line train to Arlington Cemetery, which is just below where I'm standing on the Memorial Bridge.
And it was like, what is going on?
For Stephanie Howard and Tiffany Light, what should have been a quick trip on the Blue Line turned into a 2+ hour nightmare. The train left Roslyn, and just before exiting a tunnel,
we heard 3 pops, and then we saw sparks on both sides, and then it stopped for a brief second.
Stephanie says this video shows the moment the train operator tried to move again.
Up against that wall now. And we noticed we were getting closer to the wall, and then all of a sudden we started seeing smoke.
Only one train car derailed, and they were on it. The train got hot and was also dark for part of the wait. Rescuers finally arrived.
Walking out the tunnel.
This could have resulted in a catastrophic event.
Not just one, but 2 shocking revelations from the NTSB. The first, the train that derailed last Tuesday had already derailed twice in the previous hour and a half, leaving brake parts strewn on the tracks. The second revelation from the NTSB, the 7000 series has an issue with its wheel and axle assemblies dating to 2017. The assemblies look similar to these, and with time, the wheels are growing too far apart. The NTSB says Metro knew the problem with them was growing much worse. After just 2 failed inspections 4 years ago, there have now been at least 39 this year.
Maybe you're not here. Hopefully you're not. If you are, you need to be taking the tornado precaution. You need to be taking this very seriously. Okay, and I'll be the first to tell you, there are times that tornado warnings are issued that you go, okay, there's rotation, but it doesn't look like it's, as strong of a possibility. Then there are times that there is a very clear likelihood, and that is this situation. I'd go as far as to say I'd be surprised if there was not a tornado in this scenario right here, just north of West River. This is an extremely strong tornado signature.
This pile of rubble, all that lumber, that is the roof structure of a home that's actually 2 blocks that way.
Well, breaking while you were sleeping, multiple news outlets are calling Virginia's race for governor. Glenn Youngkin set to be the state's first Republican governor since 2009. And 7 News is on his side this morning, bringing you full details on that, plus results on other local races. Good morning to you. I'm Robert Purdy.
I'm Ashley Rodriguez, and Republicans are celebrating what's expected to be a sweep this morning that will flip the entire state red.
I have work to do before I start my first day, and I think parents and students should be focusing on a couple of tasks to get ready as well for that first day. We're going to be covering things that are important to look at and examine maybe a week, 2 weeks before that first start.
First of all, I'd put them on a schedule, make sure that they're comfortable going to bed in the evenings and then getting themselves up, getting dressed, prepared for school, getting a lunch or a breakfast prepared for the day so that they get to school on time. And
just take a deep breath. Never be nervous because everyone's on your side. So if you don't know where to go, teacher in the hallway. If your grades are not good, there's teachers that can help you.
How much tests is it I'm going to get? How good points I'm going to get? How are the teachers going to help me read?
You got to find the right friends. Like, not friends that distract you from your school, but friends that are good and they want you to do well in school and want to be your friend.
We have our disposable masks here.
Didio says relentless cleaning and adhering to stringent mitigation standards have been critical, like investing heavily in PPE, questioning parents daily about their health and travel, and requiring a doctor's note after the onset of viral symptoms. They also provide access to COVID-19 tests and insist, if sick, stay home. So far, so good.
We rarely remind them to put a mask on.
Which means Chanel Robinson can get back to teaching. Her students back to learning and their parents back to providing.
This is video of the contentious scene that unfolded at a June 22nd meeting of the Loudoun County School Board. Interruptions and even arrests that the school system is hoping to avoid in the future.
So for tonight's meeting, we do have heightened security. We are partnering with multiple law enforcement agencies as well as private security to help us really manage crowds.
7 News spoke to Superintendent Dr. Scott Ziegler ahead of Tuesday's meeting in which the school board is expected to vote on a controversial policy regarding the treatment of transgender students and the use of their preferred pronouns at school. The very same policy that was being discussed June 22nd when the boardroom devolved into chaos.
It's unfortunate that we are at a place where we really are not having civil discourse. We're not having conversation. We're having yelling matches and screaming matches.
I don't want the sexual predators to slip through the cracks, which is what these loopholes and these policies provide.
I speak for all of the children and teachers here who have been told they don't belong because they belong to the LGBTQ community. It's a message they're getting, and it is a toxic one.
That's something I try to live by, I never forget.
It's been a long 20 years.
Ultimately, 9/11 completely changed the trajectory of my career and my life.
There was a sense of unity throughout the country that we haven't seen since.
It is our job, it is our duty, and it is our privilege to be able to keep these folks' stories alive by continuing to tell their stories.
It seems like they've never left us, they're still here with us.
If you don't remember history, if you don't know history, then you are doomed to repeat it.
This is a 7 News On Your Side special. 9/11, 20 years later. The loss, the lessons, our strength.
I'm Jonathan Elias.
And I'm Michelle Marsh. That fateful day changed the course of people's lives and the direction of our country in ways we are still seeing today. The Pentagon behind us made whole again, one of the many visible reminders in our country of how we were able to move forward and why we must never forget.
And over the next hour, we're going to bring you stories of our losses, the lessons we've learned, and how people have gained strength in the decades since. Our Brad Bell was in New York just hours after this all happened. He joins us now, starting off our coverage.
20 years ago, this was ground zero for a nation and a city experiencing deep pain and shock. But even then, as I arrived on scene, you could see the spirit to recover springing to life. Today, people from all around the world come to the 9/11 memorial. They look at the nearly 3,000 names of those who were killed inscribed here. They can gaze into the pools that mark where the Twin Towers stood. They remember, but they can also look up at the soaring and gleaming One World Trade Center tower, which stands as a testament to the strength of a nation that would not be defeated. It was a resolve I witnessed firsthand here just hours after the towers fell. It was a scene I'll never forget, still vivid even after the passage of 20 years.
Shirt, we leave it here. We are
By the morning of 9/12, New Yorkers, just plain people, organizing themselves, giving.
I've never experienced something like this in my entire life.
Rolling to Remember, a huge veterans event on Memorial Day weekend, was almost a no-go this year. Here's 7 News I-Team reporter Scott Taylor with what saved the day for these vets who are riding to the National Mall.
AMVETS, the National Veterans Organization behind Rolling to Remember, applied for a parking permit last July for this year's huge event in the district. It didn't get an answer from the U.S. Defense Department until the 7 News I-Team started asking questions last month. The Pentagon finally declined the permit due to COVID-19. AMVETS had already reached out to D.C. Mayor Murrow and the D.C. Police Department, who both came through by approving AMVETS' use of RFK Stadium on Memorial Day.
How difficult has this been to secure a location this year?
It's been incredibly difficult, well beyond anything I think any of us could have comprehended.
Here's your first look at the streets that will be shut down on Memorial Day. They include part of 695 and 395 West, Main, Independence, Constitution, and 3rd Street. The event brings awareness to veterans missing in action and still unaccounted for, and the alarming veteran suicide crisis in America.
We really appreciate all the effort you and the I-Team has put into this. A lot more exposure or attention to this demonstration has been a great result.
Last month, AMVETS told us they thought there were going to be about 50,000 veterans on motorcycles here on Memorial Day weekend. Now, because our investigation took off across the nation, they expect 100,000.
Well, new tonight, we introduce you to one dancer who is moving the Washington Ballet forward beyond what you see on stage. In this 2019 Washington Ballet performance of the Nutcracker, you see why 27-year-old Nadia Budu is at the top of her game. Budu says she fell in love with ballet when she got her first Swan Lake book.
I didn't know it was ballet, but I knew that I liked that, and I wanted to be the woman in those pictures in that pretty tutu.
Budu was encouraged by her parents, and she idolized Misty Copeland and members of the Dance Theater of Harlem. But as she began to dance professionally, things changed.
It wasn't until after I left high school that I felt different or tokenized in some environments. It was also brought to my attention because I stood out, I had to be a little bit more than the others because everyone was looking at me.
Budu is just one of 5 black dancers with the Washington Ballet. Last summer, after the death of George Floyd, she spoke up, leading discussions about long-standing racial bias in the ballet culture and how to make it more inclusive. Were you scared? Were you nervous?
Yeah, I was very nervous because as a dancer, we're trained to not speak, we're trained to move and do. And so to find my voice, not necessarily that I don't have one, but to find the courage behind the voice was extremely hard.
It's been a wondrous birthday for Ryan Lowry of Leesburg. Gifts to enjoy and a Zoom call with his dad, who's traveling.
Are you having a big day or what?
Yes, I'm having a big day.
I am so proud of you, man. 20 years old. This is crazy.
Crazy doesn't begin to describe these last 2 weeks.
I'm a bright guy, but I also have... communication is hard for me.
But his handwritten words on paper have touched millions of people.
Dear future employer.
A couple weeks ago, Ryan, who has autism, penned a letter and posted it on LinkedIn.
I realize that someone like you will have to take a chance on me.
Like everyone else, Ryan has hopes and dreams, and he is gifted in math and memory.
And you can memorize anything. Want to recite pi?
3.14159265.
He wants to be an animator or work in IT.
Please let me know if you would like to talk about this with me. Thank you.
And there have been a lot of people who have wanted to talk to him.
The post has been viewed more than 6 million times.
It's raw, it's beautiful, and they all need a chance.
Thousands of people from scores of countries have reached out to the family to help Ryan. He even has calls in the coming weeks with Fortune 500 companies.
You broke the internet, dude.
Yes, I did. But that letter was viral.
Rob and Tracy Lowry say the goal when their son joined LinkedIn and wrote this letter was for a young man to just learn about business and responsibility.
Very proud of him.
In the end, we're learning what bravery looks like.
What every mom wants is for their children to grow up and have a life and support themselves and be independent.
Jay Korf, ABC 7 News.
It's not every day.
Oh my God.
That you can see a zebra.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Running wild through your neighborhood, just blocks from your house.
So I still can't believe, after all this, that we saw the zebras. I mean, it's still pretty nuts. So.
But for the Upper Marlboro Du Bois family,
now I'm so sad I start crying.
That's exactly what happened over the weekend.
This became a thing, right?
It's
this
true,
became like she was the zebra lady at that point.
Michelle says it all started during the commute to school, a way to keep the kids engaged.
So it's been 3 weeks of let's look out for the zebras.
Then she ordered zebra PJs and took the kids zebra hunting after hearing reports of a nearby sighting.
Yeah, Saturday morning, I was like, we're going zebra hunting.
So after about an hour of searching, they gave up. But on Sunday, they would finally get their wish.
When we saw them, I said, Daddy, pull over the car. I think I saw the zebras. And then we went back and we saw the zebra. Now I'm so sad I start crying.
The heat is going to bring the cicadas out in full force. So how you doing with that? Well, right now you could tell us how you feel about the cicadas. Go to WJLA.com/vote now, and the results of our Insta poll will be right there at the bottom of your screen. Now, there's a local entomologist who says it's time for us to think of these bugs in a whole new way and embrace the magic.
You see this cuteness, don't you?
On a beautiful day in Rock Creek Park, we are cicada hunting with Samuel Ramsey, PhD.
Look at that face!
Better known as Dr. Bugs.
They are the most fascinating thing you have ever stepped on.
Dr. Bugs is crazy about cicadas. This entomologist with the U.S. Department of Agriculture says it's time we all looked at the insect with fresh eyes.
When I have the opportunity, I work hard to, in some ways, evangelize to the rest of the world. This is not something that you should be terrified of.
Friday nights in the DMV are all about high school football.
7 News is on your sideline every Friday night.
Covering more games than anybody else.
Are you ready for some football?
Breaking down the biggest rivalries and showcasing what Friday nights are all about.
I was going to do a back handspring just to show how excited I am.
7 News on your sideline every Friday night at 11 o'clock.
New tonight, back open for business. FedEx Field will once again be rocking this fall. And a story that we first told you about at 1 o'clock this afternoon on WJLA.com and on our app. The Washington football team is planning to start its season this year with FedEx Field at full capacity. Can I get a preview of what it's going to be like, that home opener? Well, what are you going to be sounding like, Chris?
Scott Abraham joining us now with the breaking details on this. What do we know about this? What happened?
Yeah, Jonathan, Michelle, some major big changes here with the Washington football team. And this is a result of the NFL's investigation into sexual misconduct by team executives. However, I want to make this clear. The NFL did not remove Daniel Snyder. This was his choice to step back for the next several months. Snyder's wife, Tanya Snyder, will now assume the day-to-day control of the football team.
This holiday season, we thank you, our 7 News family,
for stepping up to help our neighbors in need.
Helping 7 News on your side give back nearly $725,000 to our community.
Paying it forward with nearly $50,000 in 7 News Helping Hand surprises.
Thanks for being on our side to help feed the hungry.
Giving kids a great start back to school.
Making holiday wishes come true.
Thank you for being on our side this year, and know that we're always on yours.
When I come and sit on this bench, it's a beautiful place of reflection.
At the Pentagon Memorial in Arlington, the 184 names etched into steel benches symbolize each of the lives taken on that dark day in 2001.
I miss his hugs. I miss so much about him.
When Basmati Bishendat lost her son Romeo, Donna Tepe and Laura Lachek their husbands Carl and Dave, Kathy Gilliber her sister Patty, in a defining moment of inhumanity.
20 years comes up and you go, oh my gosh, it can't be 20 years. And I found myself, I'm not a crier at all. And I found myself missing her so much. I missed her all along, but all of a sudden it just hit.
The water is very calming. You can hear the sound of the water.
We met 4 9/11 family members, now friends,
Marie is in her second year of graduate school.
at this place of remembrance to better understand their healing journeys. In the early years, the pendulum of grief and joy rarely swung in their favor.
9/11 happened and I was in shock. But the day they brought Romeo to the funeral home on October 15th was the day I wished the earth had opened up and swallowed me. That was my living nightmare.
They say since moving on from such a seismic trauma is unattainable, they have found ways to move forward.
When this memorial was first built, it was hard. It was really hard to look at the Pentagon because I would think about the end. But then over time, and what I think about now is I reflect upon the early days of meeting Dave, of dating Dave.
Lori and Dave Lachek met while working at the Pentagon right out of college. Their love leading to marriage and children, who lost their dad when they were 7 and 9 years old.
I asked for so many years why this had to happen to somebody who was so good and why these children had to suffer. And you don't get anywhere by asking that, but you eventually just surrender to, when it's my time, I'll have the answers. And that God is by my side crying tears along with me.
Lori finds meaning by working in grief counseling. Donna Tepe also lost the love of her life.
We started going steady in high school.
That was in 1960. Donna and Carl Tepe never looked back, building a beautiful life together. Years after his death, Donna found the strength to fall in love again.
I don't know, he and I just started chatting.
Donna and Ben Salamone met at a 9/11 support group for widows and widowers. Ben lost his wife in the terrorist attack. Talk led to a date, then another. Now they're engaged.
But of course, he still misses his wife in many ways. I still miss my husband in many ways. I wonder, what would he look like? What he would have been today? How many kids would he have had? Where would he have lived?
Basmati Bishendat uses the power of her son's love to fuel her healing journey.
I always used to tell my children that the love that I have for them would shake the universe, and I still feel that way. And Romeo and I had a very special bond. As a mother, it's been a long 20 years, but I'm sitting here today with a lot of pride to keep his memory alive.
My name is Kathy Gilliber. I'm a 9/11 family member and a building survivor. I'm sitting on my sister's bench, Patty Gilliber Mickley. She was my baby sister.
Kathy Gilliber's story is uniquely complicated. She and her sister Patty worked near each other in the Pentagon.
All of a sudden, I heard a loud sound, and debris came flying down the hallway, and I got knocked down.
As military personnel rushed Gilliber out of the building, she desperately tried, but could not find her sister.
First of all, that night, we were at the house waiting for her to come home. And that's when I knew something happened, but I didn't know what, because I looked at the television and I saw the Pentagon was on fire.
Days later, she found out that 24 of her colleagues were killed, including Patty.
It's survivor's guilt. I eventually discovered that I would have switched places with her. She had a 5-year-old. I had her 41 years, my baby sister, 41 years. I have wonderful memories. That's what keeps me going.
Gilliber believes that every one of these 184 souls were angels on earth, messengers sent here to love us, and now to watch over us.
I want you back home.
If you ask anyone scarred by 9/11, they'll tell you that the human heart cannot simply move on from the magnitude of such a tragedy. But in time, they figure out how to sit beside their grief while finding ways to move forward.
And I'm grateful for that because love is in my heart every day. Love doesn't die, it lives on with the memories.
I'm Jay Korf for 7 News.